The year 1992 marks the 300th anniversary of the infamous witch hunts that began in Salem Village, known today as the town of Danvers. It soon spread to at least 20 other towns in Maine, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. By the end of 1692, as a result of the New England witch hunts, 19 individuals had been executed, one had been tortured to death, 150 or more were in prison, several had died in prison. There are many reasons why Cape Codders and Americans everywhere should pause this year to remember the victims of the witch purges. Today, the eagerness of many Americans to tear down the wall that separates church from state evokes what happened in New England 300 years ago, when the courts and clergy worked together to root out and punish heretics and witches. Among the chief victims of the 1692 trials were old women, nonconformists, members of racial minorities, and people with disabilities. We know that these are just the kinds of people who, in our time today, are often abused by the majority and the legal system. We can't save the Salem and Stanford victims, but we in the 1990s can just say no to Christianity and all those would-be witch hunters who want to turn the American clock back to the days of Cotton Mather. Also, when you hear some mercenary preacher or politician shooting his mouth off about traditional family values, they are usually referring to the bad old days of Salem and the witch hangings that occurred many years before the American Revolution. They are not referring to the values shared by our founding fathers. Let us examine this issue very closely. Benjamin Franklin, during his time in England, was a member of Sir Francis Dashwood's infamous Hellfire Club, summarized by Daniel Mannix as an association dedicated to black magic, sexual orgies, and political conspiracies. Says Mannix, Franklin was able to meet the Hellfire Club on its own ground. As far as any abhorrence to the Black Mass went, Ben announced that he did not believe in the immortality of the soul, and he considered evil permissible, since God had created all things, and so had presumably created evil also. Even when he was an old man of 84, Franklin wrote to Ezra Stiles, the president of Yale, saying that he doubted the divinity of Christ, although he believed in his moral teachings. Gee, I wonder what would happen to Franklin were he running for political post today. Next, Thomas Paine, the controversial patriot. He authored The Age of Reason. We strongly suggest that you read it. Thomas Paine was a deist. Deists believed that God created the laws of nature but exercised no control over the subsequent evolution of those laws, including the appearance of humanity. Paine wrote the following: "The age of ignorance commenced with the Christian system." Now, let's take on the first 4 presidents one by one, shall we? George Washington, also a deist. He refused to accept communion and refused to kneel in church. Pictures that show Washington kneeling and praying at Valley Forge are fictitious renderings by the artist. Can you imagine the father of our country getting himself elected by a majority vote today with that attitude? Next, John Adams. second President of the United States, a Unitarian who once noted, "The divinity of Jesus is made a convenient cover for absurdity." He also added, "This would be the best of all possible worlds if there were no religion in it." Born October 30th, 1735, in Braintree, Massachusetts, John Adams served on the committee drafting the Declaration of Independence. He is perhaps best remembered by historians for this famous quote, "The government of the United States is not in any sense founded upon the Christian religion." Need I say more? Next, Thomas Jefferson, third President of the United States. Speaking on what he described as this loathsome combination of church and state, he said, "Question with boldness even the existence of God, because if there be one, he must more approve the homage of reason than that of blind fear." In 1802, Jefferson made the founders' concept of the First Amendment even more explicit, writing that its intent was to build a wall of separation between church and state. And he continued, "I do not find in Orthodox Christianity one redeeming feature." And here are two more quotes from Thomas Jefferson. "The Christian God is cruel, vindictive, capricious, and unjust." Also, "Religions are all alike, founded upon fables and mythologies." During his 8 years of his presidency, Jefferson he absolutely refused to issue a Thanksgiving proclamation. In a letter to the Reverend Mr. Miller, he explained, "I consider the government of the United States as interdicted by the Constitution of the United States from meddling with religious institutions, their doctrines, discipline, or exercises." Last but not least, our fourth president, James Madison. Here are his own words. "During almost 15 centuries has the legal establishment of Christianity been on trial. What has been its fruits? More or less in all places, pride and indolence in the clergy, ignorance and servility in the laity, in both superstition, bigotry, and persecution. The founding fathers did not put 'under God' in the Pledge of Allegiance. Neither did they put 'in God we trust' on U.S. currency. 'Under God' was added to the pledge by an act of Congress in 1954 during the McCarthy hysteria. 'In God we trust' began to appear on coins in 1864 and became the official motto of the United States only in 1956. The motto conceived by the founding fathers was "E pluribus unum," out of many, one. So remember your traditional values: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. No longer shall ye be ruled by guilt, fear, apathy, and injustice. Stand up to God's bullies. Look them straight in the eye and say, "I am the God of my own life, who I am and what I am becoming. This is my own living verse and testimonial, and I shall have no other gods before me." This is the daemon Egan, saying, join us again next week when we cordially invite you to go to hell.